And I welcome the statement from the Minister in relation to the departmental cock-up, which has left 119 Defence Forces personnel stranded and families awaiting them, and personnel heading out there at least now have a new date. The question I specifically have is, what are the reasons for the delay in submitting the joint submission between the Department and the military authorities to the Public Service Pay Commission, which could have helped and hopefully will help address some of the retention and recruitment challenges facing the Defence Forces?
2 minutes, Minister.
Public Service Pay Commission was established to provide objective advice to Government in relation to the public service remuneration policy. In 2017, under my direction, the Department of Defence brought issues of recruitment and retention to the Defence Force to the attention of the Commission. The Commission produced its initial report in May of 2017 and highlighted recruitment and retention issues, including in the health and defence sectors, that required further analysis. The Public Service Stability Agreement 2018 to 2020 provides for the Public Service Pay Commission to undertake this further analysis. In this context, the Commission has initially focused on the health sector and recently produced a second report focusing on certain health grades. Earlier in the year, the Commission saw specific data from the Department of Defence. A civil military team was tasked with sourcing this data, and this work has been ongoing. The material requested included detailed data and specific trends. This data was not readily to hand, and every effort has been made to provide this material as speedily and as comprehensively as possible. An initial tranche of material was forwarded to the Public Service Pay Commission through the Department of Public Expenditure Reform in early April of this year. It focused on pilots and air traffic controllers. Further material was sent in early September, and the remaining outstanding data will be forwarded this week, following its recent receipt from the military authorities. The Public Service Pay Commission work on the defence sector is underway. As the Commission work is ongoing, I will not be making any comment or engage in speculation on possible findings. I look forward to reviewing the findings of the Public Service Pay Commission in due course.
Minister, you said earlier that the submission was made in September. Can you confirm the date in September which the Public Pay Commission received, or at least were sent the submission? Because the Public Pay Commission is due to report in autumn. We're in the last month of autumn, so it'd be a very onerous task on them. So another question would be, can you confirm that the report from the Public Pay Commission will not, or you don't expect it to be delayed in any way because of the lateness of their receipt of the Defence Forces authorities and the departmental joint submission? Because we've been told often that we should wait the outcome of that commission before we look at issues of pay, allowances, all of which will help deal with the chaos that's in the Defence Forces at the moment and the failure to retain many of the highly skilled personnel who are leaving in droves each year in the last number of years. So, Minister, it's not the content of what the Pay Commission will come out with, but you know, why was the delay? It's received now. Do you expect the Public Pay Commission, given how late the submission was received, to look for additional time to tackle some of the issues or to comment upon the submissions that they've received? Because also PD4 and RACO, two of the representative organisations, received a notification in February that they had 6 weeks in which to prepare their submissions. They did so, and yet they had to wait until the last month before the state moved at all.
The joint submission from the Department of Defence and the Defence Military Management went in on the 10th of September to the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform. This was a very comprehensive submission, and it was evidence-based. It's what the Pay Commission look for. They look for was backed up with and supported with statistics, and the Commission, I know, are engaging with members of the Defence Forces right now at this moment in time, and have been for the last while. Yes, both representative associations were asked to send in, but that was their submission. This was a separate submission from both the Department and the Military Man, a joint submission. There was a huge amount of data that was needed and required, that had to be comprehensive, that was able to build up with statistics, that was able to build up with specific arguments as of the position in around recruitment and retention, and in around, as you mentioned, specific posts. So I can assure you, Deputy, that every effort has been made to give as much evidence-based data as possible from both the Department and military management.
Can I get Dr. Snodaigh?
Again, obviously you have had no correspondence from the Commission to say that there's any delay, and in that case, and I accept kind of the amount of data that's required, but most of the data that was required had been well signalled in advance. Kind of, we all know and we all knew last year, the year before, what type of data would be required to make a case to deal with kind of the pay rates in the Defence Forces, and the need to tackle the allowances to ensure kind of that they were reinstated. The supplementary question, therefore, is there any conflict between the military authorities and the Department in relation to the content of the submission? Because there seems to be at least a commentary out there that kind of those within the military authorities, including the Chief of Staff, were disgruntled with the delay in preparing the joint submission, and kind of with the urgency from yourself and from the Department, and the frustration at not seeing anything done since they fulfilled their portion of the submission.
Can I get final response?
First of all, I instructed my Department that I didn't want a wishy-washy submission going in from Department of Defence and Defence Forces, that I wanted an evidence-based comprehensive submission, and the submission goes into well over 100 pages of graphs and trends and everything like that. You spoke about when do I expect the Pay Commission to report back. In early April of this year, the submission was sent in regarding pilot retention, and we all know that is a huge issue, because pilots are sought after in the private sector, and we have been bleeding pilots over the last while because they're going into the private sector, and this is something that I wanted to make sure that this is an issue that was prioritised. The pilots issue went in early. I expect shortly that we will have a report from in and around the pilot issue. Deputy, I'm not sure when we expect a report from the Pay Commission regarding the rest of the submission that we sent in. But what I do know is that the Commission at this moment in time are actively engaging with members of the military, sitting down, having face-to-face talks with them regarding issues that were submitted in the submissions. But I do hope that I would like to get back this the Pay Commission report as soon as possible. But I am allowing them the time and space to do their work.